It started 20 years ago when ChronoFree hit the market, the miracle drug, the one that stopped time, at least for the human body. No more aging, no more decay. A pharmaceutical utopia, who wouldn't want that? They said it was safe, foolproof even. Everyone was taking it, except me. I never had a solid reason for abstaining. It wasn't fear or some high-minded moral stance. Maybe I just didn't trust the idea of perfection, or maybe the thought of eternal life made time feel cheap. While friends around me popped the pill, I aged as I always had. Wrinkles formed, hair grayed. They, on the other hand, remained frozen in their prime, untouched by time. They pitied me for missing out. I pitied them for not knowing what they might lose. As the years rolled on, society began to change in subtle but unsettling ways. People became less motivated. Conversations felt hollow, small talk stretching into long silences. Immortality, it seemed, had a price no one had anticipated: boredom. Without the looming specter of death, the urgency to create, to innovate, or even to love faded. Art became repetitive. Invention slowed. What was the point of rushing when there was always tomorrow? I noticed other changes too. People on ChronoFree became detached, isolated in their immortality. They had time for everything, but passion for nothing. I chalked it up to existential fatigue, the weight of endless tomorrows. But then came the real horror. Around 15 years in, the first reports surfaced. Whispers that ChronoFree wasn't perfect after all. There were those who had been on it longer than a decade who began to complain about strange symptoms. At first, they were dismissed: unexplained insomnia, occasional memory lapses. Normal side effects, the drug companies said. A recalibration of the body's rhythm. But it wasn't just that. People began to lose the ability to sleep altogether. They would stay awake for days, then weeks with no fatigue. They became gaunt, their once youthful faces stretched thin over sharp bones. Then, they stopped eating. At first, it was seen as a quirk of the drug. ChronoFree was supposed to make the body more efficient, after all. But the truth was far darker. As their sleep and appetite vanished, so did their ability to connect to reality. They no longer felt hunger or fatigue, and soon, they no longer felt anything at all. The first wave of panic hit when the collapses began. People who had taken ChronoFree for over 10 years started falling. At first, it was just a few cases, but soon, entire cities were filling with those who were paralyzed, their bodies stiff and unmoving, yet their eyes, those cold, distant eyes, were still wide open, watching. Some doctors theorized that the drug had disrupted neural pathways, severing the connection between body and mind. The media called them the awakened, still conscious but trapped in a body that could no longer respond. There were attempts to stop it, of course. Governments enacted emergency measures, banning further use of the drug, but by then, it was too late. The changes were irreversible. Scientists who had resisted taking ChronoFree worked tirelessly to find a cure, but their efforts were futile. The drug had woven itself too deeply into the biology of its users. Society began to collapse. With more and more people succumbing to this waking death, hospitals were overrun, and infrastructure failed. The streets were lined with the unmoving bodies of those who sought eternal youth. They had achieved it, in a way. Perfect, ageless forms, but utterly still. There were rumors of a secret government bunker, where some of the world's most powerful leaders, still unaffected, were trying to organize a response. But nothing came. I continued to age, the years now showing in every crease of my skin and ache in my bones. The world around me grew quieter with each passing day. I became one of the few who could still move, still speak, still think. Some of us holdouts formed small communities, scattered remnants of what was once humanity. We lived on the fringes, scavenging supplies, watching the frozen cities in silence. We spoke little. There was little left to say. I sometimes wonder why I resisted ChronoFree. There were no grand epiphanies, no flashes of wisdom, just a quiet instinct that perhaps life was meant to end, that maybe death, in all its finality, gave meaning to the days before it. My friends, my family, those who took the drug, are now statues in this eerie stillness. I look into their eyes, and I see the faint flicker of awareness, as though they understand, at last, the trap they set for themselves. I stand at the edge of the city now, gazing at the skyline of silent towers, the streets filled with the paralyzed forms of those who sought to escape time. They have escaped it, I suppose, an endless, waking eternity. And for the first time in years, I'm glad I chose to grow old.